interesting. 50% of this room, as in the rest of the world, thinks that we have the most amazing administration right now. Oh my God, this is fantastic. And the other 50% are going, what the hell happened? Okay, that's the statistics happening right now in our world. We're in a chaotic time, right? Although some people, even if you like where we're at right now, you're going like, wow, this is a change. This is different. So it's fascinating how the whole act of human design, we come in with like little blueprints, right? And what Peggy has studied and is bringing forward today to us is the human design of not only Donald Trump, but when you learn about the human design of a public figure such as Donald Trump, you can also get a really interesting curiosity going of what's the human design of me, right? Or you. So I've had my human design chart done with Peggy, and it's very, very fascinating. So, Peggy, would you please come up here and share with us what's going on with our president, Donald Trump? And can we all give Peggy a big hand? Thank you.
Well, you know, I have been irregularly coming to the Adams Center for 10 years or maybe. But back when Adams Center was on the, close to Jordan's carpet, you know, I loved, before I had kids, and one of them's 24 now, I loved Adams Center and all the information here. So for those of you that I know and those of you that I don't know, I just wanted to let you know that I love Adams Center. So. And when Todd Lance did his Astrology of the United States of America, what, a month ago or so?
Something like that.
That inspired me to do, well, I had already done Donald Trump's chart. I had already worked on his chart, and but that inspired me, Todd's talk about America and the chaotic times that we're in, and that it isn't going to stop yet, and but that America's soul is strong. So that prompted me to then request if I could do this talk on Donald Trump. And I just want to say that Donald Trump was not who I wanted to be president when he was campaigning. He wasn't, I did not like how some things he would say things I agreed with, and the next day he would turn it around and say something the opposite. And I thought, what is up with this? You know, so don't think I came here with a bleeding heart for Donald Trump, because I did not initially. And I still, but after Todd's talk and after he was elected, I realized, wow, the candidate that I had in mind would not have been able to stand this chaotic time in such a way, because Trump he can be brash, and he can speak so clearly right to the heart of an issue, and it is not politically correct. But boy, that's what we need, because there's so much aggression against another that is so emotional and not well thought out, that I think he really, once I saw his chart, I thought, man, is he the one that we really need here? So I have become a bleeding heart in some ways for him. But we all of us are human design. We all have challenges and we all have gifts. And these gifts and strengths are incredible. And I haven't done a chart that has the strengths that he has. Peacefulness, you know, I'll get into that soon.
Really?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. And that is not what our media is showing at all. And most of the media.
What a surprise.
But all of us, we have what's called the not-self mind. And that is the egoic mind. It's the lower mind. It's not the higher mind of God that's connected with Supreme Being, our Creator. But all of us have, no matter how we're designed, with the beautiful gifts we have and strengths, we can all be pulled away from that in such insidious and subtle ways that we don't reach what our gifts are. So that's the caveat I wanted to say in the first place. And can everybody see this all right? Yeah, the light's shining on it in a way. So I'm going to see if I can at least remove some of the...
This is kind of small.
Could we bring it forward,
Yeah.
like?
Yeah,
Here, let me have it.
yeah.
Wanna move the whole table?
You can move
That's a
the
good
angels
idea.
and all that stuff too, or use it as a.
Just put it on
Yeah,
your
I guess.
podium.
Well, I don't-
Just hold
I-
it up.
I-
The podium, yeah, that doesn't really,
Yeah, that won't,
Oh, yeah.
maybe we need an easel.
this will help a little bit.
Yeah.
And it will get the light off, perhaps, off of this, so,
That's better.
okay.
I really think.
So, let's see. So, I'm certified with, the International Human Design School, and, based out of London, but they have American Human Design. I'm certified to be a guide for human design, teaching a workshop for 7 weeks, or individual classes, one-on-one, you know, whatever. But soon, within minutes, or maybe a month or two, I'll be certified as an analyst, and that is what I really wanted to do. And so, and then this is part of what an analysis is, what I'm doing for Donald, but it isn't as deep. So first of all, I want to tell you why I did Donald Trump's chart. Was because I'm pretty busy and interested in so many things, and so but I, in the human design community, if you can pass this around, this was, I saw this. And it's an unattractive picture of Donald Trump. And it's one, and anger is shown on that as a keyword. All these are keywords, or called keynotes, for descriptions of him. And I looked at that and I thought, you know, why are we accentuating some of the incompetent, for one thing, such a number of words, martyr, zealot, and I thought, you know, I know that he's a generator, because I had looked initially at his, and generators are frustrated in life. They don't have the level of anger that another type has. So, so I thought, well, that's what prompted me to look at it. And when I did look at his chart, then this is what I found. And anger is a part of it, but it isn't as broad as that large anger shows in there. And there's a lot more that we'll get into. So first of all, I want to talk about this explained body graph here. So on the day that we're born, we have the sun and the earth and all the planets in our solar system, and they define certain areas. All these numbers are indicative of certain aspects: physical, spiritual, emotional, and mental in our bodies. And on the day that you're born, then all these black numbers, they correlate to these black lines here in the chart. This is your conscious, which it's about your personality, and it's what you're aware of, consciously, or can become aware of. And over here, 3 months before you were born, or 88 degrees on the astrological chart, then this, here in these red numbers, are where, when you were in your mother's womb, if you were not premature, this is where the stars, or the solar system, downloaded certain aspects into your body while you were in utero. So there's two aspects here we have of astrology: conscious and unconscious. And this red then is unconscious. It's part of our body. And so when I describe some of these unconscious aspects to people, they'll go, well, no, that doesn't sound like me. No, but their friend or their sister or brother will be next to you. Yeah, that's you. Because we're not conscious. We can become aware as we get older and as we experience more things. We can become aware of what we've done or what we just said that we didn't intend to say, but we all of a sudden made a movement, and our loved ones and our friends and they're aware of what our body moves, how we move through space, what we do, and so we can't control this unconscious, but it's interesting, we can become aware of what we've done when we've done it or said it and go, oh yeah, that's, you know, I always do that. I don't know why, but I always do that. So if you have your own chart done, then that's, and if you don't agree with what I tell you, then I will just gently try and persuade you or show you the background of it, and it wouldn't help to speak to your mother or your friends too, to see if that's okay, so So all of these numbers, there's 13 on each side, so for a total of 26. And if you look here, when it's over, if you want to look at this closer, we have from numbered 1 to 64 through this whole chart on these geometric shapes. And 64 is how many, is the number of the I Ching hexagrams, 64 hexagrams in the I Ching, the Book of Changes. And that describes physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And it also relates to the 64 codons of our DNA. So the thought that we have or the emotion that we have affects our the amino acids that's produced, and this is, so what I'm trying to say is this is a system of logic, and it has 4 ancient systems of information, but it's got a new system of our quantum physics, quantum mechanics, and so it comes right down. It can be related to the body and the mind. So all of these, there's 9 what is called centers here, and they're wheels of information and energy chakras. But we've evolved from 7 to 9. This system says so. So here up here is the head chakra, and this is about thinking, inspiring questions about life. This is the Ajna center here. This is about coming up with mental concepts and finding answers in life. This throat is about communication and manifestation and expression. This is called the G center here, and this is about love, it's about direction, and about identity, self-identity. And over here, this small triangle, this is what's called the heart/ego, and this is a small triangle, but it's a powerful center, especially if it's undefined, for those of us that are undefined. He has his defined, and about 20% or 25% of people have, or 30% have that defined. The rest of us don't. That's about competition, and it's about having self-worth, and willpower. It's a motor of energy that gives you the willpower to make a promise and then have the energy to complete that promise, to see it through. And 70% of us on the planet do not have consistent willpower to back up our promises. So that's why that's powerful, because we're promising stuff all the time for many different reasons, and then we can't quite make it do, or if we do, then it stresses us so that we can become more vulnerable and ill. The sacral center is a motor of, it generates life force energy, and anybody that has this center defined is called a generator, and that's what makes Donald Trump a generator. And over here, the splenic center, this is about the immune system, and it's about fears in life, and it's about staying alive. Over here.
Stay alive, okay.
Yep, keeping the body alive with instinct. Oh, thank you for saying that. It's about staying alive through our instinct and intuition too. That's there's instinct, intuition elsewhere, but that's where the biggest abilities come to stay alive. And this is the emotional center, solar plexus, and so this is an awareness center. It's also a motor of emotional feelings and emotional waves, so highs and lows, hope and pain, and happiness and unhappiness. And this, when this is defined, when this solar plexus is defined, this is what your decision-making authority is, to make decisions based on how you feel over time, not at the high of emotion, because you'll say yes to things, not at the low, because you'll say no to things. So this trumps everything else, this emotional center. That's how important our emotions are, because there's spiritual awareness that comes with how we feel nicely or badly about people, about situations, about jobs, about work. So there you go. Oh, whoops. So I'll need that in just a second. So then the last one then is the root center down here, and that is a root that's also a motor of adrenalized energy to get things done in life, to keep moving and get things done. Okay, so that's the basics of the chart. And anywhere that there is white in a chart, so first of all, let me talk about that, is these 1 through 64, all of these numbers here, and you'll see some of them as you get closer, Some of them have circles around them, and that means that's where they're defined, either by the, on the day that you're born or 3 months before. And so if there's nothing there, if you see white, either in the centers or in these lines that come along here, travel between the centers, that means they're open. And so everywhere that there's color, then, so here Donald Trump is defined, and he has consistent energy everywhere where you see these black or red lines, or where you see those centers colored in. That's what's consistent in him. That's where his strengths are. He can rely on to be making his decisions from, and to be and to get through life. And everywhere where it's white, he's open, and it's not filled in. And when other people are defined, and he gets next to him, his wife, his cabinet, you know, his friends, his enemies, he's taking in energy in those white areas, and he can amplify it or distort it. All of us can. This is describing all of us, not just him. But everywhere there's white, we take that energy in, and we amplify it, and we send it back out again. So that, all those white areas, that's where any one of us can get into trouble. And those white areas are not consistent, and the mind, the not self mind or the egoic mind, is interested in what is not consistent. Because what's consistent is boring. You know, it's the same old, same old. So the mind wants to know, oh, what's interesting. So every time Donald Trump is with someone different, they're filling this information, him in with their energy, and he may feel that it's his energy and his reliable information, and he can make decisions based on that. All of us, not just him. Okay, so now let's look more specifically about him. So these areas, well, I already covered that. So he's a generator because he has that sacral motor defined. Now he's a manifesting generator. There's a subtype. There's a pure generator and what's called a manifesting generator. He's a manifesting generator. When you have a motor defined that's connected to the throat, then that makes you a manifester. A manifester is a certain type. But if you're a generator and you have a motor connected to the throat, that makes you a manifesting generator. And so that means that efficiency is really important for him. Manifesting generators, efficiency is important. And so he's going to cut to the chase, and that's what he does in his communication, and perhaps must be in his business too. So here he has the motor connected right to the throat. And you see it's a red line. It's unconscious. So he has, from his emotions, what he's feeling that he may be aware of or may not be aware of is just out of his mouth. Can come quickly out of his mouth, good or bad.
That's obvious with his press conferences.
Oh, have you noticed? Yeah. So another thing, look at this small ego. He's got the ego center defined. That's connected directly to the throat. So he's got 2 motors connected to the throat. That's 2 times of manifesting generator. That he's able to communicate, and he's able to express himself and to manifest in life more than I do, because I don't have any motors connected to my throat. And so, but his ego, his ability to compete in life, his self-worth, is all connected to his throat. So immediately he can speak those things too. So
It's in his makeup, right? It's like his natural.
yes, that's his makeup. Yes, yeah. And it's interesting, and I watched the press release he just did last week. I watched the hour of it, and I saw, well, I'll talk about that later perhaps, but I saw these positive things in him. That's what I saw reflected. And boy, I'll tell you, if you guys were throwing tomatoes at me or, asking, critical questions, and I see, it would not be easy for me to handle this. I'm not that kind of, I can handle a lot, but in a public discourse, my mind is not connected directly to my throat. So if you come up with an idea to challenge my idea that I just spoke, then, and if it's an idea, this is different because I've studied this and know it, but if something, it's hard for me to recall, or it's hard for me to convince you of where I'm right, if it's something that you don't agree with. Well, he's not that way. He's got 2 of these motors connected right to his throat. And so he's able, and so when I am in it, why is that? So I'm in an argument, and if some of you are defined to your throat, and then I'm taking in your energy, so I can't argue too much with you if you're really adamant, because, I'll try though, but because I've got your energy in me, and it's your energy that I'm trying to unconsciously combat. You know, you give me an avenue to speak, but it's speaking more of your ideas, your energy. So that's why it's harder for me. I could not stand somebody like him to be able to stand there and give it right back to someone who's giving him an egoic and emotional response. You know, that's whether he's right or whether he's wrong. At least we've got some balance in some of the issues that are being talked about. Okay, so when I started looking at his chart, I was amazed to see peace, intuitive insight, leadership, adaptability, prophet, the teacher, monk. Does this sound like the title jump you've seen?
Monk?
Isn't that something? Oh, by the way, so in that, if you watched that whole press release last week, and I did, and then I saw the news after that. I saw the news, and
Were they
I
the
saw
same?
all the written things, you know, not all of them, but a lot. And what they said about Trump, unhinged, or it is not at all what was happening in that press release. The press was asking him, nailing him again and again and again on the same questions. And so he would come back with talking again about the same questions that they asked in a different way, a little bit different way, for an hour, pretty much. And so he spoke about his, so then he would fall back and spoke about what his accomplishments have been and this. But his tone was calm, and from this knowledge, this helped me to see, look at him there, he was calm, he said he was having a good time, but he still, he gave the press exactly what they were, at that meeting, what they were asking for. And that was a fight back. But he didn't do it in a fighting mode. He used his words calmly, and that's what I saw. So, and I know he hasn't been that way on the campaign trail, but now we'll see what he's able to do. So there's many people that are shocked and afraid and angry about what they think he will do, and what we're told he'll do in the media. So I wanted to share this information so that you could see he is not designed by Supreme Being or by his higher self, or he's not designed to fly off the handle and do dangerous things and push that button that could bring us to despair. That's not the way that he's designed. And
That's a comfort.
yeah. And look, if you're on the campaign trail, look at how, no matter whether you are Bernie Sanders, or if you're Hillary Clinton, or you're Trump, or you're any of the other Republicans that were there, your questions are coming. They're coming at you, and some of them are ones that have been covered again and again, and so that's a very unsettling time to be. Now, thankfully, someone is in that position, the president. They're in their office where they can have some quiet moments and to be really thinking, so we'll see what happens and what he does. So he has personal values. I think I'll go through this first. His incarnation cross. He was born on the right angle cross of Eden. Garden of Eden, that's what that relates to. Cool, huh? And it's in the second quarter of civilization. So it's about building civilization. It's about building what does civilization need in order to survive, but thrive. So his leading force in his life, he has this cross because where his sun is, he's got gate 12 and the conscious sun. And this is about caution and standing still. And it is one of the most important mutative gates that Ra, the founder of this system, spoke about. So Donald Trump has the ability, through what he's speaking, and thinking, and to be quite caution, stand still, and to articulate and express himself correctly in language. So he has that ability. So this quality, it's his light shining out into the world, to be cautious and to be supported by others while he withdraws. So it's important for him to withdraw. That's part of why he's called a monk. Monks withdraw, and they're supported while they withdraw so that they can be thinking and have the quiet enough time to get in touch with whatever they're trying to get in touch with. So he has the unconscious in the second half of his life, which is now, when his Saturn return occurred. Then he's now on the road he's traveling sort of on a road, or he's traveling through the neighborhoods. If you think of our lives, and it's kind of hard to explain because this is about the nodes, south nodes and the north nodes of the moon. So that is about our background in life, the background that we happen to be in a moment. And now, in this time of his life, he is unconsciously in a place where he's meeting the people that have the ability to foresee and to be cautious and foresee and plan for the end of when it's time, for the end of standstill. So caution and standstill, and then but able to see and understand, oh, now it's time to move. So he has that ability, and that's also in his in the neighborhood or the road that he's traveling on. And the road he's traveling on, he's going to meet people that also have that ability too. So hopefully those maybe they'll let some of those people that have that cautious ability to stand still will end up in the cabinet as well. So the right angle cross of Eden, that sounds great, except because of this mutative quality that everything changes and is in flux, that whenever you enter Eden, it's not something you're allowed to enjoy. Adam and Eve found that out. They enjoyed it for a while, but they were kicked out. And so Trump is also kicked out. His life purpose is to create material things that humanity needs to live and thrive, based on this of where that the quarter of civilization and building is about. Building form. So that's building buildings and businesses, and what is it people are going to need to eat and where live and work and play. So his purpose is to create these things, but here in the Garden of Eden, where you can lay around under trees and watch the sunset and eat grapes, that's not what the human body is for. That's not what our form is for. We've been endowed with the capacity to create and recreate and manipulate, manifest, and manipulate what we've created. And so there's pressure for him, rather than to sit back and enjoy Eden, there's a pressure for him to get out and to build and to create and to recreate things. So he is also a 1-3 profile, and that comes from the I Ching, right here, this 1, which is conscious in this 3. Because this profile, I'll talk more about that in a minute, but there's a lack of innocence with 1-3s. And they are investigators, and they need a solid foundation in life, and they also are trial and error, and so they make a lot of mistakes in life. Look at Edison, it's Edison and Henry Ford, and they made a lot of mistakes, experiments, trying to see what works. And so we make so many. I'm 1-3 also. And so by the time we end up getting a little bit older, and our parents and our friends say, look at all the mistakes you made, just look at them. This the list off.
Aren't they great?
Yeah. And we say, if we understand our human design, we can then stand a little straighter and say, wait a minute, every mistake I've made, I haven't repeated more than once. And I have learned so much. I've learned from every mistake I made. And it's, but what you do is you get to where you can have a lack of innocence, because we see what doesn't work in life. And we don't see just our own mistakes that we have made, we see how other people are making mistakes. And so if we grow to have more wisdom in our lives and honesty, self-honesty, then we can begin to be a guide to other people that might still be making mistakes that they don't want to make. So, so as a child on this cross, then he's set out as an investigative martyr. Now, why is he the martyr? Is unconscious, and that's because when you find out what isn't working, wow, you want to tell everybody. You want to tell people what doesn't work. Look at the education doesn't work system, and look, our government doesn't work, and look at our medicine doesn't work, and our spirituality and religious, they don't work, and people don't want to hear that. And so we're pushed away. People, you know, if we tell what's wrong in life before we're asked, people don't want to hear it. And they push us away, and so we're martyrs because we are pushed away so much. So that's part of Donald Trump. But on this cross, when he's in Eden, there's a tremendous capacity for intellectual development. And I think that we don't see that. We haven't believed. How smart is he? You know, we don't know. And that's because these motors to the throat and of the emotions and his ego are what he's been saying a lot. And so, but he has the potential, and as a child he had to be for great intellectual development. So 1-3s see so many things. They see others move away from innocence, but we can see other people moving away from innocence, but they're not going in the right direction. And there's nothing wrong with moving away from innocence, because that's where wisdom comes from, and or it can lead to wisdom. But if you're going in the wrong direction, and that's what a lot of us 1-3s can see, and so Donald Trump is designed to see and say, look, there are wrong ways to go in this world, you know, and there's wrong ways for America to go in this world, and he has said those things, or maybe not in quite those words, but that's what he's talking about from what he sees in life, consciously and unconsciously. So let's go just a little bit deeper into that profile. I want to read some keynotes to you that are related to that 1-3. So, investigator, martyr. He consciously needs a solid foundation in his home, in his relationships, in his work, in his life. And that's why he wants a solid foundation for America, because he sees that it's not balanced now, has become unbalanced. So, if he doesn't have a solid foundation, he's going to dig and dig to investigate and research to see if it can be made solid. He's an investigator, and he's introspective, modest, empathetic, and a chameleon. So that's his conscious aspects. So his unconscious aspects are the martyr, the trial and error part of him. So I already talked about Benjamin Franklin and Edison. Family and friends, yeah, look at all the mistakes you've made, and so he finds what doesn't work in life. He also bumps into people, and things bump into him. And what he bumps into can surprise or dismay him. And third lines are the salt of the earth, because we've made mistakes, and we see what doesn't work, and we've trial and errored and investigated. So we're the salt of the earth, and we're very needed here, because humanity needs to know what doesn't work in life. So because we have seen what doesn't work, and we get the pushback of don't tell me, and no, you're wrong, don't tell me, then we can become very resilient, and he has become resilient, adaptable, mutable, and needed by humanity. Well, I mean, maybe you don't need Trump, but you need him as a 1-3, so you could find out what he sees doesn't work. So, that is, okay, so I still have more to say, but I would like to put this in here now, that during the campaign, I saw photo ops of where Donald Trump had some black ministers, African American ministers behind him, ministers, rabbis, and there were a lot. And I saw that, and I thought, photo op, you know? It's, you know, what are you doing? You're just trying to show how close you are, can be to the, and I didn't believe it. Well, then, as I was doing some work here to do a lecture a couple of months ago on his design, I was looking for some books on spiritual aspects, on Amazon, and you know how when you're looking for one thing, something else pops up. And here was this God's Chaos Candidate that was listed, that popped up. And so I thought, okay, well, what is this? And Donald J. Trump and the American Unraveling. Wow. And I thought, oh boy, I don't think that's a book I want to read. Who wrote it, though? Who wrote it? So I looked, and it was a minister. His name is Lance Wallnau, and he's a white minister. And what's interesting, this book, so when I read that, I thought, that's interesting, because you see, for 8 years, I have had a push to see from, I grew up with religious, as a Baptist, not Southern, we could dance and we could wear makeup. But I grew up as a Baptist, and in my 20s, I moved away from that because of what I saw in my life that didn't work, and so I then was spiritual. So I've been on a spiritual quest for most of my life. Well, about 8 years ago, I began to see, wow, something's going on in the Christian religious community that is what we're doing too, from some of the movies that I saw. So I've been pressured by Supreme Being to investigate, how can we come together? How can the religious community come together with the spiritual? And so that was part of what caused me to read this book. And this book talks about how this white man was invited by some of the black rabbis and some of the black ministers, I think they come from out of Chicago, a group of religious ministers that wanted this guy to come too, because they knew of him, but it was an honor for him to come with these people.
Talking about the author or Trump?
Talking about the author.
Okay.
Talking about the author, yes,
Okay.
being invited to come. And so he had met with some of these men, and so when the black communities, the religious communities were invited to come and do a press release, to do a talk or something before the press release to Donald Trump. And I hope I'm saying this correctly or getting the idea across. So this man, he watched what was going on between Trump and this community. I don't know whether Donald Trump truly had a religious or side to him, or a spiritual side to him or not. I don't know. But this man could see that one was developing between these black ministers and rabbis, and between this man himself and the connection. And so reading this is a really interesting book, because it showed me a side that made me see, okay, well, maybe that is true. Maybe it wasn't just a photo op, and maybe he truly does. And so what? He just did this campaign speech. He called it a campaign speech down in Florida yesterday, the day before. And Melania Trump does the Lord's Prayer, And so we're a spiritual community here. But boy, believe me, we all need each other. And thank God that she did that Lord's Prayer, because that's a different message. And so there's still more that I can talk about and want to, but I wanted to save you into, I've written a prayer here. Well, it's not just a prayer, it's a declaration, a decree, because Jesus Christ is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And who are the Lord of Lords? Who are the Lords and the Kings? That's us. And what do kings do? What do lords do? They decree, they declare. And so we can say affirmations, we can say prayers, we can say decrees and declarations. So whichever way that if anyone is moved to do it, please would you read this or take, I've on the back table in here, I've left copies, because the more of us, what this is asking, the way I've done it is that we decree that the light of God Most High come into our government, come into Donald Trump, into his family, and protect him so that nobody's dead, no matter what side they're on, everybody can stay alive, but that the God's will comes for the destiny of the United States, whether that's a destiny that is, that Donald Trump is currently on, or whether it's something he's changed to. That, please, if we could all, the more of us that are praying and are seeing the good, because when we're concentrating on the difficult side, now it's important, there's enough of us 1-3s that are looking at the trouble. We're looking at the trouble, we see it clearly. But once you see it, then you can switch to a positive mode of declaring, this is what I want, and you just Well, anyway, so that's, I guess, enough about that. I'm preaching to the choir here about that, about affirmations and. So, well, I guess. Is that it? Yeah, if there's any questions, yes.
Is this a malleable frame, or is it once you're born or once you're conceived, it becomes that?
Yes and no. These aspects,
Yes or no?
human design system, Ra, said that these are the way that we're born and this is it. And you can't change these things. You can become aware of them and you can start to, try and think differently, but the way our unconscious is will still say and do these things. But there's another side, and that is from the spiritual side, that we can transcend what we're doing here. And we are in a time of transcendence. We're in a time of a spiritual war. And, some of us are going to make it, some of us aren't. And so we're able to transcend, and this prayer will help him transcend to what he is supposed to do for America as well. Oh, and why is this called God's Chaos Candidate? It's because these rabbis and ministers could see, they feel that that's why the religious community feels that he's God's chosen. And I can see why they believe that. Yes.
What do you think gonna happen to him?
Pardon me?
What do you think gonna happen to him?
Oh, I don't know. We'll just wait and see. Yeah. This is a wonderful time to be alive, isn't it? There's so much chaos and difficulty, but we're not bored. Whoa.
So I want to offer something. Back in the 80s, I had a crazy wisdom guru, and during a talk he gave one night, Donald Trump came up. This was back in I didn't even know who the man was.
Oh.
Right? But Donald Trump came up. And what he said at the time, and take this for what it's worth, is that he was actually one of us in the previous incarnation, and that we all in Egypt, many of us, and who were in that room that night, had studied with this crazy wisdom guru, including Donald Trump. And Donald Trump said he learned the ways of power in that Egyptian incarnation. And so all these things that we see him doing, putting his name on buildings and all this like crazy, how he manifests power into the world, which he was taught to do in Egypt, and he was a pharaoh in Egypt, early on building civilization.
Interesting.
And that later on he became an emperor of Rome. And so I'm a 25-year-old kid at the time. I'm like, well, that's an interesting point. And then I never really thought about Donald Trump again, and suddenly he's running for president. So,
Yes.
and suddenly he's the president of the United States.
Yes. Boy, that was a shocker, wasn't it? But to answer your question, I don't know what will happen, but I would like to say that I have seen since I've been looking at religions, and I've been seeing, looking at prophets, what prophets are saying, modern day prophets are saying. And one of the religious modern-day prophets just passed away last November. But for years, way before even before this election was coming up, Kim Clement made a prophecy that there would be a man in America that would be a trumpet for God. And a man would come into the White House whispering my name. This was God's of the prophecy God gave to King Clement, that a man will come into the White House of America whispering my name, but within 2 years, a year or two, he will be shouting my name. Now, I don't know whether that's true, but to me, I think we all have to do our part. We want America to be strong. We do not want the division that's between one and another, young and old, black and white, and it's just religious and spiritual. We don't want this division. And how are we going to get it? By making these declarations. And when somebody at the head of our country is talking about unity and making actions that are related and to his talk, are being backed up by his actions of what he's saying, that's what we want. And so, yeah.
Peggy, in what ways do you see Donald Trump as modest? How do you see that he's modest?
I see it in his peacefulness. It can be, well, in his design, I see he's got that. He has that by his ability to stand still and be cautious and not to just be barreled forth, and devil may care, or he has some revolution in him and some ability to break things apart, but there's a lot of things that need to be broken apart, when things are past their prime and they're not serving us any longer, and there's a lot of that's been good for us in the past but isn't good for us now in this time. So modesty, I don't know that I need him to be modest, but I see that through the peacefulness and his reflection, his mental reflection, and his ability to calm his body enough to get information from God. So yeah, I don't know.
Oh, yeah,
That's all I've got.
That's good. No,
Yeah.
that was good. It's
Oh,
the second
Look,
definition of
there's,
modesty.
because 30% of the population are defined with an ego, and so they just go around and they have a self-worth. Now, we don't see his self-worth. We think his own esteem is low because he's got to brag about what he's done. That's what we see. But when you have a defined ego, you just walk around and live your life that you're competing with people just fine, and you have a sense of willpower and a sense of your own self-worth. But if we're looking for modesty, I would say look to yourself to find your own modesty in life and your own strength and your own courage, because 70% of us don't have that willpower, and so we don't have that sense of self-worth that 30% do. So when we make a promise and we can't keep it, well, then we feel badly about ourselves. So so that's.
Two more questions. Jimmy?
I have one. I first had a couple of questions. First, have you done Obama? Because, as a comparison, because apparently he's organizing and causing a lot of the turmoil and the civil unrest, right? What is his design? And second, for all of us, as it's a consciousness war, as you alluded to.
Mm-hmm.
So what I wanted to share was, because I try to look at it from a real neutral standpoint and say, what's the intent behind it? And does the information you're consuming cause you fear? Or does the information you're consuming cause you to rise up and declare, right? And
Yes.
We want to manifest a greater future. So
Yes.
So it's what I wanted you to comment on is this split where the right says, I can't believe they can vote for Hillary, and the left goes, I can't understand. Can you comment on that?
Yes.
Why that's happened?
I
What are people
did
supposed
some
to
time
get?
ago. I did not do this level of work, and I didn't do the keynoting on him, on President Obama. But I did. I know he's a projector, like I am. But I'd be happy to do that and do another talk with about past President Obama. I did do Hillary Clinton stuff.
I was wondering.
I didn't want to bring it up, but.
And you alluded how their personalities affect the personality of the country.
Well, exactly, certainly.
So
And their
please.
unconscious effects the country too.
Okay,
Yeah.
tell us about Hillary.
Well, I'm
quickly.
glad I could do, well, here I am making a promise.
I think it's
Oh,
another
okay.
time.
Yeah.
But what is she?
Just
say what it is. Is she a generator
Oh, she is she's a generator. I think she's a manifesting generator like he is. And she has a channel of leadership, but there's some other qualities. And some of his prophet, his stand still and caution, there's more aggression in hers too.
Good.
And so, but I'd be happy to do, but there's positive things in every one of us, and are we meeting them or are we not? Oops. And if we're, are we going into our not self mind and going every which way, but along the path that we were designed? And here, what this system is for our kids, our grandkids, and great-grandchildren, so that they can learn what is their intuition and instinct and correct decision-making authority that will guide them on the path during these chaotic times and into the beauty that we can come to. This system is really for children. to be raised knowing what their strengths are and their parents to know what their challenges might be, so, okay, thank you.
Awesome.
It's very thorough. If you want to have your design, please see her. It's very unique.
Yeah, I only did more of an intro.
I know,
For-
it's everything. You only get 45 minutes to introduce everything here.
I do know she's already played her trump card.
I know.